We've had some great emails and stuff from last week, haven't we? We had one from Liz from New Zealand, who I know is on the line. Hi, Liz. I'm going to read this out. Because last week we did our session on attitude, and some of you will have been on that line call and some of you not. So I'll read out what Liz says. I've personally dealt with this crisis, that's the virus crisis, by disappearing into my imagination, co-writing stories with my 4-year-old granddaughter about creatures in our garden. What an amazing and refreshing imagination she has as she chatters away, kicking through piles of autumn leaves, free from adult constraints, reveling in a boundless enthusiasm for life. We've much to learn from a child's viewpoint and their sense of purpose.
Thank you for that, Liz. And also, we had a great one in from Jenny in Melbourne, and she said, I found the 2 wolves parable stayed with me this week, and I've started...
if you remember, just pray see what that was about.
Oh, well, it's basically about if you whatever attitude you decide to adopt, the one that you feed is the one that's going to flourish.
The wolf you feed.
The wolf you feed, yes. So if you focus on negative stuff, that's what you're going to get more of. And likewise, positive stuff will enlarge that. But she also said, you might remember we talked about labels a bit last week and these limiting things that mean that we play out these scripts in our lives. And she said, I challenge myself about not being musical. And so she said, I've started some online cello lessons with somebody we know in England. So she's from Australia. She's doing online cello with somebody in England. And it's made some of her key relationships much better, and it's made her feel a lot better in herself and in her job. So that was really lovely.
Really great to hear that, yeah.
And yeah, so thank you for the comments. We just picked a couple out for tonight. But
so what are we doing tonight, Judy?
Well, we're going to talk about purpose, as you know from the email. It's one of the most important parts of the book, and we're going to give you a couple of our favourite coaching questions that we like to use ourselves, so we'll give you that before you go. And we've got 2 guests on the call tonight. We've got 2 people who've got really interesting stories about what they did in their Act 3 lives that have meant purpose has come front and centre for them. So some good stories there from Dan and from Angela. And as usual, there'll be a Q&A where you can come in and ask us some questions or make comments, and you can actually do that all the way through the evening. Just to say, again, this is recorded, so you need to be happy about that. And please take care of yourselves. You know, this is not a session about a recipe demonstration or something like that. This is about something really big and deep and meaningful in your lives, our lives, people that you're with. So take care of yourselves, because it might come up and bite you a bit in the next few days as you think about this stuff around purpose. Okay, Tilly, bit of a technical moment.
Hi there. Hi everyone, my name's Tilly, and I'm kind of helping Mum and Dad with some of the tech side of things.
Tilly, you can call us Judy and Adrian if you like.
Judy and Adrian, yes, sorry, the authors. I've muted everyone so that Mum and Dad can speak without interruption, but there will be, if you are going to join the conversation, Angela and Dan, I will unmute you from my end, so don't worry about that. There is a chat feature. I'm going to send a message to you all now saying hello, which it should pop up at the bottom of your screen in orange, and if you just click on that, then a little sidebar will come up. And we really invite you to contribute throughout the session with comments, questions, interact with each other. So it's kind of like another discussion going alongside the live video. And that's also how, hello Katie Tyndall, hi Liz Curran, hello Angela Reith, thank you. So that's how we will bring out questions later on. So you feel free to contribute questions as we go, but when we come to the questions, you can either say, I have a question and I'll unmute you, or you can just type the question out. Great. Are there any, is that everything? Yeah, Mum said we were recording, so over to you, Mum and Dad.
Thank you. So something that we always do is we're just going to light a candle for everyone that any of us know who may be struggling at the moment. Perhaps they're finding this whole thing really difficult. Perhaps they're very anxious, perhaps they're sick, perhaps you know somebody even who's died as a result of coronavirus, or you're missing people that you can't give a real hug to. So this is the candle.
This is for them, the candle of love. my trumpets out the back there that I was going to play Somewhere Over the Rainbow, but I thought I'd spare you on this occasion because I haven't worked up the
not yet
the notes yet. I'm retired. So let's just very quickly recap our book, which is, not all of you have got it, but a number of you have. It's called Act 3, The Art of Growing Older. It's about this stage of our lives when perhaps in the old days we might have called it retirement, but now we're all so healthy and vigorous and full of beans that we've got an extra chapter in our life. So that's what this book is about. And we based the book around a tree, the branches of the tree being the things you get up to, and the roots of the tree being the 4 things which sustain you in your life. So that's what tonight is about, one of those roots, which is about purpose. And so, Tilly, just want to show the tree slide very briefly, and the root slide. There's the tree slide. So in the branches of the tree, your home, money, work, play, friends, the world, and the special things to you in the tree, and your health being the trunk. But the 4 roots are attitude, purpose, values, and key relationships. So today we're going to be talking about purpose and meaning, which we take to be the same thing, really. Thank you, Tilly. And there's a writer called Richard Rohr that we like very much, who defines purpose as that which gives you your North Star or your inner compass. That which gives you your North Star or inner compass. And writer Anne Tyler's ideal day would involve several hours, she says, of good involved writing, the kind when you suddenly look up and 3 hours have gone by. So one way of kind of discerning what your purpose might be is when time vanishes and you are into a flow or a space which is different to the rest of life.
So as we're going through, it would be really interesting if you just want to put in the chat box, what do you think purpose is and how do you experience in your life at the moment? And interestingly, older people, which is pretty much all of us on the call, we get this urge as we get older, and we can see life is going to change and it's not going to go on forever. Perhaps we might get something like coronavirus, or we might get another big curved ball of ill health or something along those lines.
But we're certainly going to die.
Yeah, there's no not doing that. But in our older years, we get this increasing sense of responsibility that we need to leave the world in a better place for those coming up behind us, whether or not you've got children. There is a sense that means you start thinking about, what does my life count for? What is my legacy to this world? And there's a lot of people thinking about that stuff right now. Not everybody, but when we are forced into this kind of grounded situation, it does make people start to think about the big stuff. Another way to think about it might be if you write yourself a mission statement, which is a bit of a highfalutin phrase in a way, but there's a lot of companies, aren't there, that have a mission statement which sort of sums up what they're about. Yeah,
exactly. And I think a lot of them are, somewhat hollow, but that doesn't mean to say yours has to be hollow. And we've got a piece on page 43, if you've got the book, which is about writing your own mission statement. I won't read that out, but well, in fact, I'll read one out. This is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time.
Guess who that is?
Starbucks. And to embrace the human spirit and let it fly. That's Virgin Atlantic. And
not a lot of that going on at the moment.
Here, to create a better everyday life for the many people. That's IKEA. So, so Judy, what's your mission statement, do you reckon?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I think I've spent 20 years with the main driver is I want parents to have a better relationship with their children. And I've been trying to figure out how best to do that. So typically I do that through writing about it, through coaching, through a bit of media work. But the big purpose, what makes me get up every day, is what can I try and do which is going to help parents have a better relationship with their children. Whether that's me as a mum as well, or whether it's any of the people I work with. What about you? What would you say your purpose is?
I think mine has been more about creating stuff. I went into advertising because I wanted to create elegant stuff. And I think that I really find I wither a bit if I'm not creating things. So, for example, creating stuff like this is part of what makes me tick. The important thing is for me to create stuff that's true to myself, which relates to my values, which is what we're going to be talking about next week. And I see coaching also as a creative process. It's a creative process in which people are creating the real self out of the self they've got, revealing their true self, I suppose. So that's, I'm guessing that's not a very eloquent mission statement, but I'll need to hone the words at some point.
You're supposed to get it down to like a sentence. But have a think what yours might be. It's just one of those ways in which perhaps you could begin to access your own purpose, what would your mission statement be? So yeah. There's some tips in the book, but it's things like, imagine you've gone to hear a talk by somebody and the person up there speaking, and they are so interesting in what they're talking about that you can't stop listening, and you can just see they've come alive. And actually you then realize it's you, and you're talking about what you really believe you're here for, to do in this life. So what is it that's being said? That's another little way you can tease it out of yourself.
I think you need to get creative with yourself in order. That exercise that Judy just mentioned is in the book. It's worth doing, I think. And so I think right now with this pandemic going on, we've got lots of big and small questions in our heads, and lots of noise about life, what's going on, how long are we going to be in lockdown, things about what's work going to be like after the virus. We've been talking today with one of our daughters about what, college and university life is going to be alike in a short while and in the long term. And questions about how we all survive, finances. And yet, for me, certainly, and us mixed in with all that is, just being able to think about having a cup of tea or to get through the day requires a kind of a focus on purpose. And what am I doing today? Why did I get up this morning? One of the people who got in touch with us since last week said, I spent the whole of Monday in tears. I just couldn't stop crying. This is, I think this is, it's a very good time to be talking about purpose, because actually this whole thing is testing our sense of purpose.
It is. But I think it's important as well to be gentle on yourself and be kind to yourself, and not feel like, you've got to be the next person walking 100 paces up and down your garden, raising 13 million, like that amazing guy has just done at age 99. That is obviously a completely brilliant thing to have done. But it might be that it's important now, with our worries and our anxieties and our muddle and our lack of concentration, that all we can think about is what might I manage today? And we said we'd give you one of our favorite coaching questions, and it's this really, which is, when you get to the end of today, what will you be pleased you did? What about when we get to the end of lockdown? Maybe you can stretch that question a bit more. What will you be pleased that you did? Or maybe even, as we asked in the book, which was obviously written long before coronavirus, what will you be pleased you did in Act 3 while you still could, and while you had some options, and while you could perhaps do some thinking around that? So maybe think about that as, what will you be pleased you did? As you close your eyes at night and replay the day, as many of us do, what's just one small thing? Well, yeah, I managed to put some washing on, or I managed to write 50 words, or I managed to walk the dog, something that has actually meant you feel a bit better about yourself. And that's all in this great capture, really, of what we would think of as purpose.
And as we said last week, referring it back to our way of focusing on that, we talk about GOAT's goals. So whatever you do needs to be genuine, optimistic, achievable, time-related, specific, and GOATs is, we've got a calendar in the other end of the house with goats in the tree. So that's how we came up with this GOATs idea.
There's the goat.
So just try and keep focusing on genuine, optimistic, achievable, time-specific, and timed and specific goals that you might achieve, whether it's today or on the longer term.
And I think as well, if we won't have enough time on this call tonight to go into lots of deep, heavy explanations about what purpose is, and loads of ways in which you can find your purpose. But, you know, of course, there's much more in the book. But also, I think if you want to email us afterwards with some I'm not sure about this, you know, we are sitting around with not a huge amount to do. So we're very happy to respond to your thoughts. Lovely emails came in last week. So yeah, just leaving that as an offer, because, you know, this is a massive topic, but we're trying to make it big and achievable and real.
Yeah, it's funny because purpose has a grandiose feel to it when you say it.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually it doesn't. It starts out by being really straightforward and simple. Yeah. And it could be expanded. So I want to bring in Dan now, and if you could unmute Dan. Are you there, Dan?
I am.
I can't see you, but there you are. Yay. Oh, hooray. So this is Dan Kunkel. And so Dan, tell me about yourself. What was your original career?
I'm a geophysicist. I'm embarrassed to say this in public now, but oil exploration. Hydrocarbon exploration. So, you know, map making. Drill here, don't drill there.
Yeah, yeah. And you did that for how long?
Oh, well, best part of 40 years. I have had other little diversions from that, but yeah, 40 years.
And then I understand at some point, I don't know how long ago it was, a few years ago, you had a health issue.
Yeah. 2007, I was in the middle of a squash game and I had the most almighty headache. It floored me. And I crawled home from that and spent days with this headache. And as you know, you men out there know, my wife said, call the doctor. I said, that's just a headache. And instead of calling the doctor, I went straight to the internet, of course. And the first thing that came up, #1 BBC Health Guide in 2007, middle-aged men, it's called sudden migraine. Middle-aged sudden migraine strikes at 6:30 on a Friday night. Perfect, that was exactly right. So I thought, I went into the office the next Monday to say to my partner, who also started getting migraines, give me some of that. I used to take migraine tablets. I used to smuggle them in from the States. You could buy them over the court. Anyway, it went on for some more days. I finally saw the doctor. She referred me to the hospital, Addenbrooke's it's called, on Thursday. And Friday morning, I was getting the first of 2 brain aneurysms, first of two operations.
Wow.
So that's how it started. And so when I got out, I mean, especially as an American, I was deeply grateful. I'd never been in the NHS before. I'd never, been in a hospital before. So I said to myself that, as soon as I get extra time, I'm going to volunteer to, pay back the NHS. And more particularly, I said it to everybody else, lots of people. I said, I'm going to volunteer. So 10 years, exactly to the day, 10 years later, I signed up to be a volunteer at Addenbrooke's. And the reason I said it to other people was so that I would feel obliged,
Yes.
Part of good behavior comes from avoiding hypocrisy. So I deliberately said for 10 years, I'm going to volunteer by way of forcing me to do it. So, yeah. So what I found as a volunteer, as a guide, every time I had been to the hospital, this is a kilometer-long corridor at Addenbrooke's. So yeah. I was always lost. I thought other people would be. And I surprised myself because not only did I enjoy just helping people find where, as they came in the door, just helping them, but I not only enjoyed it, but I was good at it. I was really good at it. And yeah. I mean, it's easy because people coming in the hospital are nervous. They want a friendly face to say, where are you going? Come with me, I'll take you. So it was easy, but I really enjoyed it such that I decided to up my game,
Oh, yeah.
I gave myself an infinite pay rise to minimum wage and applied to be a healthcare support worker in the wards. So, 6 months later, I had 2 weeks training and I started working in the wards 2 days a week. And, don't forget, this is 3 years ago, not in this crisis now, but for me to come from especially the oil business.
Yeah.
What other institution, what other line of work could you have such a culturally mixed, politically mixed, economically mixed, racially diverse group of people all working to make sure that all lives have equal worth. This was remarkable to me.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it. But as for purpose, in my first experience of that, when I left after the brain surgeries, I had a little disability called anosmia, which is to say, for 14 years, I've not smelled or tasted anything. And I struggle with this a lot.
Yeah.
But working in the wards allowed me to give that disability a purpose in a positive way. Because I bet lots of people who are listening, I mean, lots of people I've told this to, yeah, I'm working in a hospital. They say, I couldn't bear it. I couldn't stand the smell. I couldn't stand mopping up people's poo. And, you know.
So not being able to smell was an advantage.
Yeah, and it gave my disability a purpose in a very positive way. I mean, it's almost like I've always, hey, listen, I'll clean up that. You know, don't you do it. Because, I mean, it does sound patronizing to the, you know, smelling able, to the osmic nurses who do this every day, day in, day out. You know, the fact that I can enjoy it, I can give them a little relief. So that's what I have to contribute about purpose. I've given my disability a purpose, and, you know, really, I enjoyed it.
That's great. Thank you very much. I think we'll move on. Any other questions for Dan?
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. That's great.
So can I just ask I just want to check what you do with yourself now.
Well, I mean, 9 months after I worked there, I developed a heart condition, so I had to stop working. And when I reapplied to work after I had a heart, you know, open heart surgery, I got turned down. So I'm going to reapply. I've been reapplying.
You told me once.
I think I'm just too old to do it in the coronavirus. So they'll.
You told me once that you, when people had brain surgery on the ward, you used to show them photographs of yourself when you'd had the same operation.
Yeah, just by way of cheering them up.
Yeah.
By way of saying, yeah. I mean, you probably don't want to see it, but.
Go on.
Oh, show us, yes.
Whoa!
Oh.
That was followed a week later by another scar on the other side. I had the, you know,
matching scars.
I can't wait to go bald, because I'll, you know, with a severe scar here and two here, I'll be, you know, who's going to mess with me?
That's amazing. Goodness me.
That's great. Thanks, Dan.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Cheers.
It's lovely to have you on this tonight.
Thank you.
Well, so from Dan and his brain surgery, and you know, finding that's amazing that his disabilities, he couldn't smell, so therefore that became a gift. It's like that became his purpose for dealing with all of the poo. Fantastic. So we're going to bring Angela in now, who is she's actually a family member. She's my sister-in-law. She's your sister. And Ange, are we with you? Are you there?
I'm here. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's in.
There am I.
Oh, there she is. Yeah. So Ange, we're speaking to you. You're down in Holloway, and here we are in Cambridge. But how you said that at a point in your life you retrained as a music therapist, and I love this quote. You said it was one of the most significant things I almost didn't do, which to me, it has this fantastic illustration about how we could have gone this way, but instead we didn't. We just found the strength and the courage to turn around and go in a different direction. And my goodness, has it meant a lot to you. That's what I've witnessed in seeing how your life has changed as a result of doing this. But how did it come about?
Well, that particular quotation about the thing I almost didn't do was actually not so much about music therapy, but about deciding to go on a jazz summer school at the Guildhall in the late 90s, when I was getting on for my late 40s. And I was in the toilet reading the Musicians Union magazine, and I suddenly saw this advert, and I thought, oh, why don't I do that? So, and I didn't know anything about it, but I went on the course. And it was, well, probably one of the most enjoyable things I'd done for about 30 years. And as a result of that, met two colleagues, and we eventually formed a trio and sang together for 10 years. And then out of that, I'd realised that music was actually, although I was a trained musician, I hadn't been working full-time in music up to that point, I began to take music seriously, the kind of power and effect of it on me and on other people. And then after our parents, Adrian's and my parents, died, I had the chance, the money, to be able to go and train as a music therapist. And that to me felt like it was taking music even more seriously, because it's using music as a therapeutic tool in a much more focused kind of way than simply singing to people or enjoying singing together.
What was the training like for you?
Oh, it was really good being a student again in my 50s.
Yay.
I was very fortunate because I had enough inheritance money, and this is, it's a practical thing. You need money to do that kind of thing, but the money helped me be able to pay for it and to get through that year without having to work. It was fantastically, it was just a really good cohort of students who I'm still in touch with sort of 10 years later or more, 10, 15 years later.
Were they similar age to you?
No, I was the oldest there. Their ages were from something like 23 up to maybe late 30s. So I was probably 15 at least years older than everybody else.
It's good you're still in touch with them all.
I'm still in touch with a small group of them, yeah, and they contact me, they WhatsApp me, and it's really nice. And it was quite eye-opening to work with the kind of clients that I started working with. What in particular at a children's secure home. This is for children, for young people, young teenagers who were at risk from, they were runaway kids. They weren't youth justice children, but they were locked into this place because they were at risk. And just to spend half an hour a week with some of them, playing music, encouraging them to do whatever you do in a music therapy session. One of them said to me after 10 minutes of playing an instrument, marimba, she said, "I've just played my whole life story." Now, I didn't know what that story was, but to her, it was really meaningful. And so you have those really deep sort of connections with people in the world of music therapy. But also, I also now run singing workshops, or have done for years. And in my weekly singing workshop, which I can't run at the moment, of course, people come week after week because they find it's, for a few people, it's the one thing they do in the week that connects them with themselves, connects them with other people, and sort of works against loneliness.
So it gives them a sense of purpose, you think?
It does, yes. And I think that's the reason I do these things. I mean, it nurtures me. Music nurtures me, but it also, I know how deeply it nurtures other people.
How would you define purpose? It's a slippery thing. I mean, and Judy and I we're quite sort of ginger about trying to write about it. It seems so huge, isn't it?
Yes, I don't think, I'm not the kind of person who has kind of 5-year plans or thinks, oh, right, this is my great purpose in life. But I tend to look inside for what gives me life, and I express that and find that it connects with other people. Okay. So it's being true to what is deep inside me. And
so though it's connected to people outside, it starts inside you. It
has to, yes. Because then it's authentic, and it's something that actually is part of me and has always been a part of me. But I think it takes many years to actually dig down and find out what is it about me that I need to sort of experience, understand, and then get out there.
Yeah, what is the gift that I've got the world needs, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think we touched on some of this last week, that how we don't allow ourselves to have those thoughts, or let alone do anything about it. And that's partly why by the time we get to Act 3, it becomes more prescient to allow yourself to go there. You might need to find a way to be paid still. there's a Japanese theory called ikigai, which some of you might have heard of, and it's too detailed to explain on this, but it's to do with this interface of what can I do, what will give me meaning and purpose, what gives me joy,
what does the world need,
and also what could I get paid for. So there was an actor who basically said it much better and just said, find what you love and try and find a way to get paid for it, which is what we try and say to our kids, and when they were trying to work out how to pursue who they wanted to be in the world.
This is very high tech.
Ikigai.
Here's the Venn diagram. So it's about those four things overlapping. And if you can get them, if you can get to the center of all those four overlapping circles, that's a great place to be. So your passion, your mission, your vocation, and your profession. So that's a kind of theoretical. Some people like those. Judy doesn't like these kind of tools. And I always say in our coaching sessions to clients, if this tool doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. But for some people it works, other people it doesn't, and that's fine. Both is fine. Ikigai is a Japanese, apparently it means a reason for being. So that relates to what Angela was saying. It's part of who you are, Angela, is you're a musical person, and that satisfies you and makes you able to do what you do in an honest way, really, it is genuinely you, which is great.
And can I just ask, is this the most you've ever been, if that's good English, compared to what you used to be doing before you went to that jazz thing and then went on to train?
It probably is. I was doing video and TV production, producing, directing, editing before that. And there were times in that when you have working with a creative team, and it's great working with really creative people and working in a team. Often I'm working on my own, but it's lovely working in a team. So I think there were times in my previous career where it was satisfying and enjoyable, and the things I was working on were probably, good for the audiences. They weren't sort of stupid stuff. It was meaningful programs. But I do think with the music, because if I'm singing, I am the instrument, and so in a way it's much closer to home than even playing the piano, which I love doing.
There is something kind of, even for amateur singers, there's something extraordinarily, transporting about being in a group singing, particularly if you're new to it. I think, on the odd occasion where I've been in a choir and the magic sort of happens, it's pretty amazing, because it is, as you say, it's part of you. You are not only an instrument, but you're joined in an orchestra of other instruments, of people together. It is pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? And
yes, I think the group singing is a very, very powerful picture of society, or of a good society, where everyone has their different part and they sing on different registers, but together it makes a fantastic sound, and it works as a unit.
Yeah.
You were doing it in the street, weren't you?
We're doing it now. Yes, every Tuesday night I go out to my front gate, play the guitar and sing songs, and hint to people that I will be there, and people come along the street and stand outside at a safe distance, and we all sing together.
Yeah, that's great. So is there anything else that you want to leave us with, Ange, as a purposeful thought?
I would say, don't be afraid to dig down, find out what you your heart's desire is a phrase I've used in the past. Find out what your heart's desire is, and follow it
as best you can. Yeah. Yeah.
And the process of finding out what your heart's desire is, well, therein lies, for some people it's easier than others, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's not an easy thing, and it may involve talking to friends or people who know you really well to work it out. Talk to a therapist, talk to a coach, talk to somebody, or spending time quietly in silence. Sometimes it's very hard to do that, but just to examine and look at nature, find what feeds you.
What makes you come alive.
And I think quite a lot of the time it might depend on, it might require you to pay attention to a voice that you might have been ignoring all your life.
Yeah, the inner voice.
And so the voice is so quiet that you don't even recognize it as being part of you. I'm imagining for some people it's like that.
Yes, yeah. So give space for that voice to come out.
I mean, sometimes people think, isn't it just about being a creative, finding your creative outlet? And I think that's true for a lot of people, but not for everybody. You know, it depends what you define as creativity as well.
Yes, it doesn't, you know, expressing yourself or finding that thing is not necessarily about being an artist. It's about anything.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Well, I think you're an inspiration.
Thank you.
You're a great encourager as well. And what we found in interviewing people for the book who seem to have settled on a purpose that they're really enjoying is that they do have that sort of light in their eyes and a spring in their step, that they understand why they get up every day, and they don't notice, like Anne Tyler, the writer, you know, that, oh, hang on, I seem to have been doing this for several hours. I didn't even realize time was passing like that, because you become so absorbed in what it is that makes you truly alive, you know. I think it's really important to remember that this is in the context right now of Act 3. And we've had people getting in touch with us who are saying, this is really making me think about what I want to do. What's my life for? Why am I here? What am I going to do when this is all over? And so you may find those questions are coming up for you, and there's ways you can help yourself work that through in our chapter on this, or else, as I said earlier, just get in touch and we'll do some emailing with you. But it may be that the biggest achievement is to walk the dog and make a cup of tea.
Indeed.
So Tilly, how are we doing on comments and questions?
Well, we've got lots of contributions, which is fantastic. I wonder if some people might be up for us coming to them. Just also now is the time to submit your questions. Is that right, Mum and Dad?
Or a suggestion or a story about your purpose. That'd be good too.
Yeah. So
not just about us answering questions, because we don't have all the answers.
Jane Kershaw, I wonder if you'd be up for if we come to you. Jane, I'll just unmute you.
Hi, Jane.
Hi.
Hello, Jane.
Hey, Jane.
Welcome.
Hello there. Hi.
What have you got? What would you like to say, Jane? There you are.
Yeah, hi. I really like the idea of purpose being a reason for being that you've just been talking about. But I often find it really hard to settle on a single purpose. There seems to be so much, so many things I would like to be involved in or contribute to or do. So I dither a bit, and then so I've settled on these sort of 3 principles. They're slightly cheesy.
Go on.
But, the principles of love, laugh, and learn. So really, basically, love and be loved, enjoy, have some fun, and keep learning. I mean, those seem to be some guiding principles that work for me, however cheesy they are.
So they as well, we'll dig deeper into this, because they also sound like values to me. And I think there's lots of blurring and overlap between purpose and values as well. But can you give us some examples of your love and learning and laughter?
Well, I think it's love. It's about spending time with the people that you love. It's so easy to get task and work orientated, but making sure that I don't know whether this is what you mean, Judy. I mean, making room for the people, the activities that I love, whether it's playing the piano or getting out and walking, or being in the garden or listening to the birds. I have so enjoyed the last few weeks in the lockdown and the quiet of the garden, and just the birds and the birds in the bird bath by my desk. It's just staggering how beautiful they are. So I loved that. They have been giving me genuine enjoyment and fun. So I think that sort of experience, is that enough? Is that a sense of purpose just in a moment.
Does that make you feel more alive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think purpose is terribly sort of earnest and you've got
I agree. I think that is Jane, that's the danger, isn't it? It becomes so grandiose and what is my life's purpose?
Or are we saving the world? Or are we raising all this money, like that amazing old man we were saying earlier? It needs to be what's your purpose, what makes you feel alive. If it doesn't matter what it is, but if it takes that best part of you and lets it come out and play, that's fantastic. And it doesn't have to save the world in any kind of cliched way. But it's certainly true that a lot of people do feel once they've put themselves a bit to one side and perhaps they've been volunteering, and there's an awful lot of that going on at the moment, that they do feel, oh yeah, this is way better to spend my time and resource and energy doing this than what I was doing before all this happened. So sometimes it might be found through things like volunteering. But tell us about your laughing and your learning.
Well, I think it's important to keep challenging yourself and keep finding new stuff and not needing to be good at everything, deliberately putting yourself into a new zone and meeting new people. I think it's really important I think particularly at our age, it's very easy to keep meeting the same sort of people. And one of the things I love about my work is that it brings me into contact with all kinds of people, different ages, young people, and just to keep listening to different people and learning from them. And then just not being over serious and just head down all the time, and making sure that there's time just to relax and enjoy a great film and have some fun with people.
I like your thought about having multiple purposes. I think that probably rings a lot of bells for a lot of people. It's not just. I think
what I might end up with, though, is a series of projects sometimes. So I get a lot of satisfaction from doing projects, but they don't necessarily gel into this single purpose thing.
Big thing, yeah. And does that bother you?
Well, only when I get purpose envy.
Yeah. Do you know anyone with a big purpose that you envy?
No, I was very moved by what Angela was saying, and I think I really liked some of her hints and tips, really, about tuning into what you really enjoy and talking to people, and I thought she had lots of very wise advice. So I'm inspired by that.
Yeah,
lovely,
good,
lovely.
Yeah, because I think we have all these kind of celebrity purpose people around, from time to time, which doesn't necessarily help, does it?
And maybe part of what your thing is, Jane, is it's about variety. That having these that fires you up is having all these different things on the go and things you're interested in, things you want to do. Maybe seems to me that's who you are. I
think I'm similar to you, Jane, and perhaps Judy's more focused than I am in her purpose. So yeah.
Any more? Thanks, you, Jane.
Thanks, Jane. So I would like to go to Liz Curran now. Hello, Liz. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Hello. Do you want me to say what I put in the comment?
Yeah, just the thing about young people I thought was great.
Yeah, I think especially in the last few years, I've been doing interim work. So I go into plays for a shorter period of time, maybe 6 months to 9 months. And often I can see people who are really good at what they're doing, but they're not being given space to grow. And I can see that in them, and I enable that to happen, and I give them the spotlight. And a number of people have said to me that they really, I don't know, it's like, then I feel through that work I've done, obviously I've done the normal bit of the job, but I've also made a difference in that person's life, and that feels really important. And I think there's a theme around that, because I think I do it when I sit beside the tennis court watching the junior tennis player, or when I congratulate an actor when they've done something at the end of a show. I just think there's a real need in me to give feedback and give positive feedback to people and encourage them. Sounds like a simple word, but I think I genuinely am an encourager, and it's nice to get that affirmed when, one of the people I've seen, I keep in touch with some of these, two of them have been women that have really stepped up. you know, and it's really nice to see them get promoted and really grow. And I just love that.
Well done. I think that's absolutely fantastic that you can celebrate their success and affirm them in that way in the workplace. There's so much more of that is needed. I think it's brilliant, Liz.
Yeah.
Really well done.
It gives me great joy.
Yeah, yeah.
Fabulous.
That's great. And so much needed, and so much more of that is needed. So that's great.
Carry on encouraging.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Especially now. You know, there's so many.
I'm not working. That's the problem. So I need to. So it's a bit hard, really. But I will find my way back.
Yeah. But I think you know, there's a lot of those of you who are in touch with young people. There's a lot of mental health problems really amplified right now because they've had so much of their future ripped away. They can't take their exams. They don't know what's going to happen. So anything any of us on this call can do to just encourage, support, listen. You know, have a laugh, be kind. All of those things.
And just be in touch.
Yeah, texting.
I was talking to someone today about asking whether that person is in touch with their furloughed staff, just to, and she said yes. That the people who are furloughed don't feel like they're out of the swim, you know, just because they happen to be in a siding in one sense. It must be very difficult for people like that, to keep the team in a good place. Yeah. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'd love to go to Georgina Hall, who had a question. Hi, Georgina. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hi, Georgina. There you are.
Oh, hi.
Did I have a question?
I think you said something. You said purpose is individual to each person, so is it difficult to define?
Yeah, I guess that was just like reflecting back on what everyone's been saying, that actually it does come across that finding your purpose is very personal, and so maybe that's why it's a bit challenging as well sometimes.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So really it was just an observation, and just to say a big thank you while I'm here to Judy and Adrian, because you helped me so much to find my purpose. I'm in the middle of an MA and it's suddenly all gone online. It was a very practical MA and now it's much more challenging. I've got to up my game quite seriously to use the technology, but I'm still really enjoying it. But it is interesting how this time kind of challenges you more about your sense of purpose, I think. In the light of the fact that there's a lot of people suffering and having very difficult times. So it's throwing up those questions for me.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, just thinking about what the next few years might be like, even, you know, once we're out of this. So there's still quite a few questions going on in my mind.
Yes, thanks, Gina. It's very nice to hear, and important, I think, to hear from you and other people saying that you have moved on from where you were. And, you know, we haven't got time to get into the detail of where you were and where you are now, but it's great to hear that, because I think everyone needs to hear that change is possible, and that I'm not stuck with me here right now. I could be somewhere else, maybe, if I gave myself the time, as we've said, to look inside, I suppose, really. So, because I think it's very easy to think, this is it, I'm 65, this is my life, it's going to be like this until I'm in a box. But I don't think it has to be like that.
No.
Thank you very much.
We're quite lucky nowadays. I think we do get these lovely extra chances. I feel really privileged that I've had a new chance. So,
yeah,
you know, I'm going to turn 60 next year, and I feel I have just started again. So that's really good.
That's brilliant to hear. Thank you.
So thanks to you guys. Thanks to you guys, definitely.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well,
thank you.
Thank you for bringing that onto tonight as well. That's really great. Okay, what else have we got, Tilly?
So Nicola Williams, you had a contribution about volunteering. Hi, Nicola.
Hi. I'm so glad I came on to this, actually.
Nicola!
It really, really is. And I got the book. It came out 2 days ago. So, but I was really, Ikigai I've definitely heard of as a concept, the reason for getting up in the morning. And I really like it. I think it's great. But when you broke it down to passion, mission, vocation, and profession, the nearest thing that ticks these boxes for me, even though I don't get paid for it, is that I volunteer for an organization called Speakers for Schools. And they encourage people from different professions to go into like comprehensive schools, academies, state schools, not private schools, to encourage young people from, if you like, non-typical backgrounds to enter the legal profession. And I've been doing that now for a couple of years, and I probably do it maybe 6 times a year, or whenever they ask me. I always do it if I've got the time to do it. But I think it's both, it can be disheartening in the sense that a lot of really bright young people think that, well, if I'm going to a state school in South London, I can't be a barrister, for example. And I say, well, I went to a state school in South London and I'm a barrister. So, and more. So it's really nice to see that shift. But at the end, when everyone is really engaged, they're engaged, I'm engaged, it's the most amazing thing. That is the thing that I do. The time just flies. And next thing I know, I'm only supposed to have an hour when I'm speaking for nearly 2, because I just really, really, really enjoy it. And I can honestly tell you that if I never got paid for it, I would still, well, I don't get paid for it, but even if I had no other source of income, I would still do it, because I get so much out of it, and it pays into somebody else's life as well. I hate to see anybody, but particularly young people, limit their own horizons because somebody, maybe a family member or somebody else, has kind of told them that that's not for you. Now, you might decide you don't want to be a barrister, not saying that you should, but you shouldn't do it because of some externally imposed reason. It should be because you don't want to do it, not because somebody else has told you it's not for the likes of you. So that's the reason I really love doing that. I absolutely do.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Nicola.
Well, I mean, one of the things that's so amazing about being in Act 3 as well is that, now is the moment when this collision can happen of your experience, your expertise, your training, all sorts of things.
And your confidence.
And your confidence, that being able to sort of look behind you and pass some of that back to other people further down the generations. I heard somebody describe older people as the biggest free natural resource there is. So, which I really like.
Actually,
yeah. So actually, if you might not really have a clear picture of what your purpose is, but certainly we've heard so many people tell a very similar story to your beautiful one there, Nicola, about when you start to share something back that has come your way because of the years you've lived, and there's no shortcut to that. It's incredibly rewarding, and can give you a sense of purpose. I bumped into somebody the other day who said they had no idea about their elderly neighbour. They've just started doing their shopping for them, and what that means to both parties. Yeah,
it changes on both sides.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nicola.
Thanks, Nicola.
We got time for one more, Till?
So Joe Glass had something about our soul purpose. Hi, Joe. Can you hear us?
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Joe.
Joe hasn't got her video enabled.
That's all right.
Voice in the ether.
What you want to say, Joe?
Well, I think.
There you are.
Oh gosh, that's scary. I think that we have a purpose whether we know or we don't know it, and I think sometimes it can be a little bit. We can get too caught up in trying to define it, find it. So I was just trying to be reassuring, really, that, and I think also we have a collective purpose that we don't necessarily articulate as individuals, and that's all part of our contribution that is more difficult to define.
Definitely.
So you're saying that one shouldn't get too hung up on trying to nail it down? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's really useful because any intention around any kind of purpose is very helpful to achieving it. So really is useful, but not to worry if one doesn't.
Yes. I agree. Wouldn't you, to get hung up on it would not be a good idea, would it? I think just to trust that I'm probably heading in the right direction is better than constantly worrying and self-doubt all the time.
And also this idea of purpose envy that Jane mentioned as well, you know, feeling
that's not
inhibited by other people who say, I mean, certain people seem to have a really clear sense of purpose. Lots of people in the religious world, for example, they're on a mission to save the world or to bring God into the world or something like that. They're just really clear about it. And other people are very clear that, you know, they've always wanted to be a doctor, that's what they're going to do, or whatever it is. If they come over as so strident about their purpose, it can be hard for those around them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember, I mean, you were expected to go into the church.
Yeah, I found that very off-putting. Everybody in my family was in the church, and people were saying to me all the time, "Are you going to go into the church?" And that's the last thing I wanted to do. And so I ended up in commerce, which was nobody in my family had ever done that, and that was a bit of a shock. But anyway, it was the right thing for me to do at the time, and so I'm glad I closed my ears to those kinds of voices. Yeah.
So am I.
I think we're going to need to probably wrap it up and tell you about what we're doing next week.
Carry on sending in your comments.
Exactly.
Definitely.
So
Tilly, you've got a little plug.
Yeah, you're going to do a plug for us.
Oh yeah. One second. So there's the Cambridge Literary Festival was due to be happening this weekend in Cambridge, but due to the coronavirus has been moved online, or a kind of bespoke package of talks and interviews will be online as part of the listening festival. So that's the Cambridge Literary Festival. You don't have to live in Cambridge to take part. It's free to everyone, and there's loads of amazing authors taking part, including Mum and Dad, who will be doing a live interview with Lee Chambers. You might remember Lee from last week. That will be on Sunday at 6 p.m. So just look for the Cambridge Literary Festival, and also Mum and Dad's social media, Act3 Life, and there will be all the information you need there. But also there's loads of great talks, so take a look, and they're being released tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so as we said earlier, if you're able to review this book on Amazon, that would be really helpful to us to help other people find it. And I genuinely don't care how few stars you give the book, or what scorching review you might give us. That doesn't matter to me. Just the fact that you write something would be lovely. Thank you so much for those who already have. So come back next week if you want to. We're looking at values, and we'll be in touch with the link as usual. And keep sending in your comments, questions, ideas. Really sorry, we've got about 80 people on this call tonight, so sorry we haven't been able to get through to everybody. But we so appreciate you showing up again. And oh my goodness, he's going to play the trumpet. Anyway, stay well, stay inside. Go on. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.